Funchal, a small island town of Madeira. The narrow alleys echo with the cries of vendors and fishermen, while the hum of the ocean joins in from a distance. A boy runs down cobblestone streets with his feet barely touching the ground, after a tattered soccer ball with doggedness. The world knew little that inside this boy, lost in his own world of football, lay one who would change the game forever. Cristiano Ronaldo dos Santos Aveiro was born into a life steeped in hardship on this cold February day back in 1985. His family was not just poor, they were threadbare, surviving day by day. His father, Jose Diniz Aveiro, was employed as a kitman in a local club, a pretty modest occupation that could hardly keep a family alive. The struggles of life weighed heavily on his father, a man who found the bottom of a bottle a comforting friend when that weight became too much to bear. Dolores, Ronaldo's mother, carried a load just as heavy, doing all she could to put food on the table. Their one-room apartment constituted a small house, thin walls and creaky floorboards, but at least it was a roof over their head, a quite advanced luxury in the neighborhood. Nights brought empty stomachs and gnawing reminders of what they didn't have. Still, Cristiano found a chunk of liberation from what lay in their way. Football became his haven. Even among surroundings so harsh, Ronaldo's imagination could take flight when he had a ball at his feet. The world melted away, and all he could see was the goal he'd set up at the end of the street, a makeshift goalpost he'd fashioned out of scraps and dreams. His family watched in wonder as he practiced constantly, oblivious to scuffed knees and worn-out shoes. Later, Dolores would say that Ronaldo's dedication had a kind of crazed desperation to it, an unspoken vow that his life would not turn out like theirs. Years went by, and Ronaldo's passion for the game did nothing but intensify. By the time he was 12 years old, whispers about his talent had begun to travel around neighbors and friends. People started gathering on the streets in Funchal just to see him play, mesmerized by that young boy who, with the ball, seemed to dance as if it were part of him. And this news did not travel slowly until it finally reached the ears of a local scout who knew when he was looking at talent. One day, he approached Ronaldo with a matter-of-fact face. "There's a trial," he said, his voice barely suppressing his excitement. "Sporting Lisbon is in search of young talent, and I think you have a chance." The words hit Ronaldo like a ton of bricks. Mute with excitement, he could barely hold his emotions in check, but the grave look on the scout's face told it all. "But listen," he added, "there's a catch. They're only going to pick one player, and it's not just about the skill. Whoever scores the most goals gets in." The big trial day finally arrived. Ronaldo took to the field, his nerves jangling with anticipation. But as the game got underway, he felt his focus harden, his determination sharpen. He scored once, his heart soaring with hope. But then a young boy named Albert whom Ronaldo had seen at the trial scored twice, and suddenly the promise of a better future seemed to slip away. Then something strange occurred. In the dying minutes of that match, with the score tied, Albert was faced with an open goal. If he wanted it, this was the winning shot. He turned his back and passed to Ronaldo. Ronaldo barely had enough time to get his head around that, and instinct just took over as he scored. It changed everything. The goal put Ronaldo on the path to the Academy of Sporting Lisbon. Yet, as he left that field that day, a strange gnawing doubt lingered within him. For what reason had Albert passed? No one could give him an answer. Intense training and stifling competition marked life at Sporting Lisbon. Most of the other players had come from comfortable backgrounds and didn't bear the drive that Ronaldo did. He felt an urge to keep proving himself and justify a place among them. But his hunger was something altogether different. His coaches were impressed by the grit, the daily grind into exhaustion. In him, they recognized something uncommon. A boy with that desperate, all but reckless will to succeed. As months slowly turned into years, Ronaldo's reputation started to increase. He started making appearances for the senior team, scoring goals with a passion that seemed almost unhinged. He became a known face, someone to watch. While all this was happening, his family couldn't unclutter themselves from their old problems. His father's health was worsening day by day, and Ronaldo's scant earning never managed to reduce their expenses. One evening, on a very quiet night at the academy, Ronaldo's phone rang. The voice on the other end was serious. To deliver the news he had been dreading, his father had fallen seriously ill. liver issues, the doctors had said, brought on by years of drinking. Ronaldo barely had time to pack his things before he was on a plane back to Madeira. The academy had granted him leave, understanding the gravity of the situation. It was the sight of him that greeted him when he came to the hospital, the very sight which would then haunt him for years. His tall, proud father now transformed into a frail figure, wired up and tubed up in some incomprehensible jungle. The man he always wished he was closer to, the man he worked so hard to make proud, was slipping away from him. Ronaldo sat beside him, holding his hand, making promises he knew he could never keep. "I'll make you proud, Dad. I'll be the best in the world. Just stay with me a little longer." But life had other plans, and days later, José Diniz Aveiro was gone, leaving Ronaldo with a heavy grief, the feeling of which was as if it might swallow him whole. His eyes sunken, his heart a battlefield of sorrow and determination, he returned to Sporting Lisbon. That was the now oft-quoted moment when he realized that he had to be the best, to make his father's spirit proud, to give his family everything they had ever lacked. For months and months, Ronaldo was an almost otherworldly force on the pitch. Fancy footwork with pure speed and agility combined left the defenders scratching their heads in astonishment. Rumors of his talent spread across, and soon many of Europe's most renowned clubs paid attention. Then, in 2003, everything changed when he started a friendly for Sporting Lisbon against Manchester United. In the floodlights, Ronaldo went into an exhibition so electrifying, Manchester United's defenders were left grasping. On the sidelines, Sir Alex Ferguson, Manchester United's legendary manager, knew he was seeing something from another world. By the end of the match, he'd made his mind up. Ronaldo was coming to them come hell or high water. Within days, the deal was sealed, and Ronaldo found himself in Manchester, donning the red of one of the most famous clubs in the world. But even in this dream, shadows persisted. Then came the iconic number 7 jersey, previously worn by legends, being handed to him by Ferguson. It was an honor that overwhelmed him, but the weight of the legacy that it carried was something he could not disregard. It wasn't just a number, it was expectation. The pressure was immense, and the road ahead wasn't exactly smooth. For a long period of time, his teammates were skeptical of him. To them, he was this flashy young player who was far more concerned with showing off than he was with fitting in. Some even made fun of him, going as far as to call his tricky maneuvers with the ball infantile. But Ferguson saw beyond that and urged him to be different while developing the discipline needed for greatness. Slowly, young Ronaldo started to prove his worth to the doubters. But just as he was getting into his stride, the next blow came crashing in. This time, however, it wasn't family tragedy but an embarrassing lesson in humility. One night after a painful game, Ronaldo's mother phoned, her voice suggesting she was troubled by something. That phone call was to produce another bombshell. His brother Hugo, whom he had hardly seen since he relocated to Manchester, was into drugs. Ronaldo felt a pang of guilt, wondering if his success had somehow left his brother behind, abandoned and solitary. It was to be a defining moment for Ronaldo. His career, for all its blossoming success, had never strayed from the fact that it was his family he was working to support. Now he threw himself into helping Hugo recover, sending money back home, spending hours on the phone offering support. Every day, he wore his family's load as though it were his own. Every goal, every victory, another step on the ladder to a better life for them all. It paid off in the form of a breakthrough season in 2008. Ronaldo scored 31 times in the Premier League as Manchester United went on to win the Champions League, and he won his first Ballon d'Or. He thinks of the pride he felt, standing on that stage, collecting the award. It was for his dad, for his family, for every sacrifice they had made. And yet, the memory of that hospital room, of the promises that he had made, still clung to his consciousness, refusing to let him be. By the time 2009 rolled around, Ronaldo had etched himself into the annals of Manchester United lore. But his ambition for something more gnawed at him, and Real Madrid, a club as noted for its greatness as its ceaseless ambition, came calling. Madrid wasn't just offering him a contract, they were offering him a throne. They wanted him to be the center of their team, the man that would bring them back to Champions League glory. Real Madrid had paid a world record fee of £80 million, and Ronaldo found himself moving to Spain, wearing the white kit of Los Blancos. Still, Madrid was a whole different world, where stakes were as high as the expectations. Every step he made, every missed goal, every falter on the field was under scrutiny by the fans and the media, and rivalries were strong here. Above everything, one young Argentinian seemed to loom large, Lionel Messi, his rise also paralleling Ronaldo's, yet through a different prism. Messi quiet, unassuming, Ronaldo with a fire in his belly and an edge. Their rivalry soon became the stuff of legend as each pushed the other onto even greater heights, creating some of the most thrilling football the world had ever seen. Ronaldo felt the pressure of legacy more than ever in Madrid. The city had been witness to icons rise and fall, and they expected him to outshine all of them. But with the fanfare, Ronaldo carried the scars of his past, the buried pain of his father's absence, his brother's struggles, the poverty that had defined his early years. The determination began to be a kind of armor. Every goal scored a response to those who doubted his place among the icons of Madrid. But with all the success also came an increasing isolation. His personal life was subject to rumors and speculation, most of all when, in 2010, he welcomed a son, Cristiano Jr., whose mother remained a mystery. He kept his son very discreetly tucked away from the media and people's views as much as he could. Friends and fans would speculate about his reasons, but only those closest to him saw the truth. Ronaldo was determined to protect his son from the relentless scrutiny that came with fame. As he rose to fame in Real Madrid, performances on the pitch reached a legendary level. During the 2013 to 2014 season, he set the record for most goals scored in a single Champions League campaign and led Real Madrid to victory, capturing the long-awaited La Decima that was the team's 10th Champions League title. For the fans of Madrid, it was a night of pure joy, but the victory that came with this win held personal meaning for Ronaldo. He had fulfilled the promise he had made to himself when he first arrived in Madrid, to leave his mark on the club's history. Given the nature of this success, unparalleled at club level, his career with the Portuguese national team still somewhat remained under assault from near misses and heartbreaks. The depth and resources were just not good enough to capitalize on Ronaldo's brilliance when Portugal had come close on multiple occasions. He had been saddened by the early knockout of Portugal in the 2010 World Cup and was further saddened in the 2012 Euros when they lost at the semi-finals. The weight of his country's expectations was incredibly heavy, with frustration always upon him that he couldn't get the same amount of success on the international stage that he had at the club level. Then came the 2016 Euros, to which Ronaldo entered with mixed feelings. By no means was it a squad favorite of Portugal, and few considered them going very far. As the rounds progressed, some sort of miracle happened. Against all expectations, Portugal made it to the final. A fairy tale run made even more special by the performance of Ronaldo, who scored critical goals that helped his team inch closer to the title. Fate, however, had dealt a cruel twist to his story. The final against host nation France, Ronaldo took to the field with determination etched upon his very being at every step, heavy with the weight of a nation's hopes. But then disaster struck in the 25th minute. A brutal collision with a French defender saw him lying on the ground, writhing in pain with his face twisted up. The medical staff came onto the pitch but could do little to revive a player who was clearly unable to go further. He was stretchered off the field, his dream of leading Portugal to victory slipping further away with every step. However, Ronaldo just could not stand and watch. In one iconic moment, he was standing sideline, barking orders, encouraging his teammates, his eyes afire with determination. As the game went into extra time, Portugal's substitute Eder scored a stunning goal, giving Portugal a 1-0 lead. When the final whistle blew, Ronaldo fell to his knees and cried, just as he had done. He had done it, finally, leading Portugal to its first major title in history. It was a cathartic moment, the culmination of years of sacrifice, pain, and relentless pursuit. But victory brought a weird sadness. That night, for the first time, he felt the absence of his father more acutely than ever before. Almost He wished Jose could have been there to see this, a son who he once thought would never rise out of poverty, carrying his country to glory. The bittersweet moment made him remember how far he'd come and the costs he'd paid along the way. The time that followed was a haze of goals, trophies, and awards. He went on to add 3 more Champions League titles to his name, broke records that had stood the test of generations, and brought home several Ballon d'Ors, inching closer to Messi's tally. Yet, despite the victories, Ronaldo started to feel this weird restlessness. In 2018, he had netted over 450 goals for Real Madrid and represented the identity of one of the most remarkable players in the history of the club. However, his spirit wanted more. The offer from Juventus seemed to him like a call from fate itself. Ronaldo signed a 4-year deal with the Italian giants with dreams of bringing the Champions League trophy to Turin. It was a new chapter, and Ronaldo attacked it with the same ferocity he'd always shown. But Turin, it would turn out, had its own mysteries. For the first time in his career, Ronaldo struggled to find his rhythm, and the Champions League continued to elude Juventus, the scrutiny building. Setbacks on the field began to wear him down. He felt weighed by what his career had come to expect of him, as if for the first time, the very game he loved had begun turning on him. Then, life kicked him in the guts with another debilitating blow in 2022. It seemed he had been able to get through all storms when tragedy struck. His partner, Georgina Rodriguez, was pregnant with twins, and they were really looking forward to the babies. However, one of the twins, their son, died shortly after birth. Ronaldo was broken, with old wounds and memories he had lost on his way once again coming alive. It is in this core of depression that his family remained at the heart of his happiness, drawing strength from his surviving children and Georgina's immovable presence. As months wore on, he finished his term with Juventus and then made an unexpected return to Manchester United. It brought old time back as it revitalized the hopes of United fans worldwide. His return to Old Trafford was celebrated with the kind of fervor reserved for returning heroes. But that homecoming was fraught with tension. The team he had left was not united, and the Premier League had changed. It was now faster and more intense. Ronaldo himself clashed with United's new coach, Erik ten Hag, over tactics and playing time. The frustration boiled over as he vented his grievances in an explosive interview in which he attacked the club management and its direction. The fallout was swift and cruel. United canceled his contract, and his second stint at Old Trafford thus ended on a sour note. In 2023, when the world was again speculating about his next move, Ronaldo sent shockwaves once more with his signing for Al Nassr in Saudi Arabia. It was received with a mixture of astonishment and admiration because many people saw that as perhaps the final retreat into the sunset, the last chapter in his career in Europe. But to Ronaldo, it was a new chapter, an opportunity to take his legacy toward a new frontier and to keep on playing the game he loved on his own terms. With Al Nassr, Ronaldo entered a different world, one in which his influence was beyond the field. He became an icon of the game's global reach, an ambassador to a part of the world that had only recently taken up the game en masse. His contract, reportedly worth $200 million a year, secured his financial future, but it fulfilled a dream he had harbored since his days on the streets of Madeira, to create a life where he and his family would never have to want for anything again. As he settled into life in Saudi Arabia, Ronaldo found a sense of peace he hadn't known before. He had done it all. He was an icon to the world, a father to an endearing family, and a man who had fulfilled the promise he whispered to himself those many years ago. His was to be a journey that had much sorrow, triumph, and sacrifice. In the end, however, he outran the shadows of his past, with the crowd chanting his name now, with the world in awe of every continued motion from him of genius and fire. Ronaldo knew his legacy was secure. He came from nothing. He fought every battle, loss, and heartache, and won. He had become more than a footballer, a legend. As he looks out from the pitch, Ronaldo no longer sees the poor, hungry boy. Instead, he sees a man who, against all odds, had dared to dream and turned those dreams into reality.